Good evening, ladies and gents, and welcome to the Colour Cave, where we like to play with art stuff. I have to apologise for the lateness of this video today. It is Thursday and it is 8:30 in the evening, and I have been on the go since 4:45 this morning, and I have had the day from hell. I'm halfway through, more than halfway through a glass of red wine, and it seems to be the only thing left to do today. I was holding off earlier on in the day to see if our scroller box was going to come in the mail. I get my mail later on in the day, and that didn't transpire. The other video that I have was, it's kind of turned into quite a long-winded video, and there was no intention of that to begin with. And we're taking a look at the sketchbook setups that I have, but also I finally got a hold of the sketchbooks that I have been waiting so long for, and I basically threw everything at it just to see what would happen. So I hope that's going to entertain you for the time being, and once again apologies for it being so late in the day. The plus side is, though, you will have a few bonus videos over the next few days. I am going to do the scroller unboxing as a bonus video, and we will also have an announcement for our giveaway winner from our birthday celebration. So you lucky ducks, once again, you're going to have a couple of extra videos, and I hope that's agreeable with all of you. So I'm just going to get on to the body of the video and stop rambling and finish my wine because I deserve it today. Let's get going. First of all, I wanted to show you my current sketchbook setup. I have been asked on a few occasions about it, so I thought it was about time that I showed you what I do, and it might give you guys some ideas for yourselves. First of all, I have a really cheap little reporter's pad, and this is just, you know, like really low budget sketch paper, and it's absolutely fine, and I paid like a couple of pounds from this from Flying Tiger, which is one of my favourite shops. And I really just use this for scribbling on. Sometimes I write notes in it, sometimes I'm just looking to pick out colours and things, and sometimes I like to wipe my my water brushes on it. So it's just a sort of all-purpose kind of like doodle pad type thing. So there's nothing of any interest in there. I also use it to take down notes and things when I'm making videos. It's really, because of the size of it, it's good just to have, you know, to hand. The next one that I have is this, and some of you will be very familiar with this. This little sketchbook actually came in one of the scroller boxes, and I thought it would be a great book just to use to test out the supplies when I'm doing the unboxing every month, and that way I'm not chewing through pages in my more expensive sketchbooks, but it's still got quite good quality paper. So basically I just take a page every month and I use it to squish out all the different art supplies on and see how they work and just get a little bit of a feel for them. So that's come in quite handy. And at the back of this I also have a sheet of scrap black paper just to test out white pens and things like that. The next book, again, I don't class it as a sketchbook, is my swatch book, and once I have a set of supplies that I know I'm going to use on a regular basis, I put them in here, and there's a bit of 3D filament just falling out of this. I was working on my 3D pen sculpture earlier. Anyway, yeah, so after I decide I'm going to use them on a regular basis, then I put them in this swatch book here, and it's just there as a reference. But I also have sections for working out where I'm going to put colour down on any pictures I'm drawing or colouring. You can see there's some quite interesting and not very skilled drawings in there. And also this part here has the colour combinations. I do have a full video on this swatch book, which I will link in the card, the end card and the description if you want to go and check that out later, and it takes a bit more of an in-depth look at my swatch book and the kind of thoughts behind it. I really like this book, it's quite nice. One of the things you will notice that is, as I go through these, most of my sketchbooks have a sticker on them somewhere. I really like stickers, and I would love to be the kind of person that could just plaster them all over things, but I'm quite a sort of minimalistic type person, so I tend to go for the more subtle approach. The next book I have here is my little Copic sketchbook, and this is the one that I'm using to draw my computer game characters in, and basically I want to fill the entire book with computer game characters and only use Copic markers. So really it's an exercise in learning to use Copics, so it is really an exercise sketchbook. This one is numbered, and I do like to have the dates on them as well. I've got a thing about numbers and dates. It's something that seems to stick well in my memory, so for later on, once I have a huge pile of sketchbooks, it will make things a bit easier to find, you know, drawings that I've done in the past as I draw more and more. So that is exclusively marker paper, and I'm using exclusively Copics in it. The next one is what I call my everyday sketchbook, and this is the one that I have just in the throes of finishing. I've only got one page left at the back here, and this is where I do all my sort of doodling and sketching and you know, that sort of thing, practice if you like. Last year I did do Inktober in this, and at that point I was still reasonably new to drawing, but also when Inktober started I was away on my honeymoon. I was in Mauritius, so it just seemed like a good idea to start it in my sketchbook rather than hauling some more paper with me. So there's quite a chunk of that that's taken up with Inktober pictures, but this is everything. There are places where I've just like tried out colours, you know, and sort of squished things down on the paper and really rough sketches, and I also have like more finished drawings in it as well. So it really is, it's like my all-rounder sticker. And this is the book that gets the most abuse. You can see it's quite sort of battered at the corners now, but it's well travelled, and I'm actually quite sad to see it go. That was just a cheap Dale or Rowney one. You can buy them for a couple of pounds on Amazon. I think I got this one, and I like the paper because it's really textured and it takes pencil well, but it seems to cope quite well with other mediums as well. So I've been reasonably impressed with this as a sketchbook. The other sketchbook that I have is a black sketchbook, and again you can see I saved my black scroller box sticker because I felt that was quite fitting. And this, I do tear pages out of this one, but this has also got, you know, all these kind of things in, so that's running alongside, and once again on the inside I have it numbered and the date that I started it as well. So those are all the books that I have in the running just now. I need a new everyday sketchbook, and that is the next thing that I am going to show you. I finally have it in my grasp. You can see from the label here, this says Illo Sketchbook. I have waited so long for this. To cut a long story short, I had to get my friend who was going on a trip to the States to pick these up from me from another friend in the States that I had these shipped to, and get my first friend to bring them back in a suitcase for me to get a hold of them. So I'm super excited for these, and I absolutely cannot wait to just dig in and see what they're like. I have never had an Illo sketchbook before, but I've heard nothing but good things about them. So I did get two just to make it worth my while, because if I really like it then I don't want to have to go through this hassle again. Oh god. Okay. Ooh. So this is an 8" by 8" Illo sketchbook. I like the fact that their tagline is fair and square. That's pretty cool. It is tightly wrapped in cellophane to protect it. So on the back it says it's a perfect square, so that is really good for sharing pictures on Instagram and you don't have to do any cropping. It's a hard cover, so it's going to be hard wearing. Heavyweight paper, great for most drawing tools, pencils, pens, inks, pastels, and it is 180 grams, so that's £122. So that's reasonably good quality paper. I would swither about how much watercolor paint it would take, but we can always try that out. And they say it's a fair price, and yes, they most definitely are. So I'm just going to gently pop this cellophane. Oh, it feels nice. It feels nice. Alright, so take this. This is a really good size. I really like this. And it doesn't feel cumbersome. I think there's quite a lot of pages in it, but they don't feel like clunky or clumsy, which is nice. They're very smooth. We've got our elasticy strap to hold it shut so it doesn't flap about. Oh, so smooth. It's really soft. I like it. There's actually a bit of a mark where the elastic's been, but that's no big deal. Oh, thank you. You're awesome. Thank you. So save $3 on your next order. Okay, I think we might have to wait a little while for that. There's a really cute cartoon on the back of it as well. It's like a mini ruler. That is so cute. I'm going to keep that and stick it somewhere. Okay, so the inside cover is yellow. And it says, "You found me, send me back to," and there's a space to put your details, and it says, "My owner will reward you with." I like that, a bit of a sense of humour. That's pretty good. So let's take a look at the paper. I'm assuming that's just the cover paper, yeah. It feels really smooth. It feels as if it would take markers pretty well, which I have been told, and that was one of the reasons why I wanted this. And yet, that's pretty thick paper actually. Wow. Oh, this is nice. Now apparently these pages fold really flat at any point, which is another reason that I wanted it, and that's pretty flat, and it's so you can draw across 2 pages without having that horrible pucker in the middle that you get with sketchbooks. So that's all very fair and well at the start of the sketchbook. Now I'm just going to hold it up that way so that you can see that it is actually flat all the way across. But let's go to the middle. In fact, it's got a little bookmark, you know, a ribbon marker as well, which is really good, and that's something I kind of miss. So there we go, that's somewhere in the middle, or let's even go further to the back. And that folds so flat, that's amazing. I'm really looking forward to this because it's going to enable me to, you know, it gives you a lot more scope to draw things, and you could put a really nice landscape or something on in your sketchbook. I am super impressed. I really like this paper. I really like the feel of it. I don't know how well it's going to take coloured pencils either. So at the back we've got this yellow cover again. And one other reason why I really wanted this was because it has the pocket in the back. In Scotland we call this a doeket. And a doeket is like a cubby hole or a place where you can, you know, tuck things in. So this is a really good doeket. I wanted to compare this to the Derwent Graphic Inspire Me sketchbooks because I have used one of those also, and it was sort of the next closest thing to one of these Illo sketchbooks. So I just want to see them side by side. Okay, so this is one of the graphic ones here, the Derwent graphic ones, and it's catching the light a little bit. So they are a very similar size. If I put that on top of there, they are, the Derwent one is slightly larger. And one of the things that I noticed about the Illo is it doesn't tell you how many pages are in it. I may have to look that one up. Okay, let's look it up. Okay, right. Just checked on the website. So these are 112 pages. The Derwent graphic ones are 80 pages, and the paperweight is actually heavier in the Illo than it is in the Derwent graphic. The differences between these, one of the things I really like about the Derwent sketchbook that the Illo doesn't have is all the pages are perforated and you can actually tear them out with ease. They're pretty good for that. They also have these patterned pages. I don't know, you'll not really be able to see them in the camera. I shall do my best to hold these up for you. This is like a dot grid type page, and they also have, let's go in the right direction, so there's squares, you can see that, and there's like a couple of sheets of each of these patterns. There's like a kind of honeycomb texture, so these are just like randomly slotted in amongst the rest of the sketchbook. I don't know, I really wasn't that bothered about them. I took them out my last one. I had no use for them really. It made it feel more like a journal, or you know, like a bullet journal, or you know, something more to that ilk, and I already have a journal, so I didn't use them for anything. But it's quite good if you're kind of lacking inspiration. It can be really helpful to, you know, like just even if you just want to doodle to get your creative juices flowing, they're really good for that. So obviously the other thing about this is these are readily available in the UK, and they're also quite cheap as well. This was, I think they're about $16, and that's US dollars each. And I only paid the US shipping as well, but I also got a 15% discount because I pre-ordered in February, so that was just like a nice little bonus. I will leave the link down in the description to the Illo website. If you are in the US, then obviously this is a much easier task for you to get yourself one of these. If you're in the UK, you can buy them and have them shipped to the UK, but the UK shipping is really expensive, and Illo actually suggest buying a pack of 5 to make the shipping fee worth your while. Now for me that's just a really large amount of money to pay out in one go, especially when I wasn't sure if I was going to like these or not, which is why I only bought the 2-pack. They will ship to the UK, but it is rather expensive. So I am now quite interested in testing this out, and I want to get this set up to fit in with the rest of my sketchbook setup, and we can test some supplies out on it and see how the paper takes it. So a rite of passage for all new sketchbooks is that they get a sticker. And I have a very special sticker that I've waited quite a while, and I've really wanted to stick it on something, and it is this one. And it is Dalai Lama. Come on, that's funny. That's funny, guys. That's really funny. So yeah, so he's going to take pride of place on the front of this sketchbook, and I got this sticker from Redbubble by a very talented artist that has his merchandise there. I shall link that in the description as well for you all, so that if you fancy getting your own little Dalai Lama, you can go and purchase that for yourself from Redbubble. The sticker quality from Redbubble is excellent. They are really high quality, and you can pick up oodles of them for a couple of pounds or a couple of dollars, and I just find it cheers my day up. I don't know how long the stickiness is going to last on the front of this Illo, because they are like a soft touch cover, and sometimes the adhesives on the back of stickers don't really like that kind of surface, but we'll see how we go. If it doesn't stand the test of time, I'm sure I can stick him down. I'll just re-stick him if I have to. So that is official. The Illo is now in mainstream use. Once you have a sticker, that's you're in. Welcomed into the Colour Cave sketchbook family. So I don't really know what I'm going to do with this inside cover, if anything. I haven't really decided yet, and I'm not really keen on putting my details in. I travel a little bit with my sketchbook, but it's one of these things that tends to be on my person. You know, I have it in like a hand luggage or I was going to say handbag. I don't really do handbags, but you know what I mean. It's usually close by, so it's not likely for me to lose it unless I lose my entire bag, which wouldn't be good. So I'm just going to leave this for now. I may come back to it and do something with it. Now on this inside page here, I normally do some sort of title page, if you like, and that's something that I'm going to do afterward. So I'm actually going to start here. And what I want to do is I just want to test out some materials to see how this paper is going to take the different things that I like to use. Now at the back of the sketchbook, I normally keep the back page just for sort of jotting down notes or, you know, anything like that I want, and to test out things to see if they're going to bleed through. So if I have like a new pen to test, I'll just like squish it down in the corner. So rather than use a white page, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this back yellow page to list things, and then that means I can use this back page to test out any future supplies. The idea today generally is to get a feel for the pages and how they're going to take all the different mediums that I like to use. So I'm going to do it in the front just as like a test. I can't stop touching the pages. I should really stop doing that, because all I'm doing is transferring the oil from my hands onto the paper. I'm just going to grab a couple of my favourite pencils that I use sort of semi-regularly. Yeah, so I use an HB mechanical pencil quite a lot. I quite like that for sort of little diddly sketches. It's precision and you don't have to worry about sharpening it and all the rest of that sort of jazz. I like to use the Palomino Blackwing pencils. I don't use them in my sketchbook a lot because they are really smudgy, but because they're soft, but they're really nice and you can get some nice shading with them. I also use an F pencil quite a lot to do outlining, and F stands for fine, so that's important for it to take that as well. Even writing, I can feel that the paper is like super smooth. But it does make for really nice sketching. So my fine pencil, as I say, I tend to use for outlines. Now I can feel that the paper is still gripping the pencil, so there's no issues there in that sort of sense of it, which is good. That's what we like. I'm not too worried about any disasters in that, but with smooth paper, pencil is the first thing, and I think that the sort of softer pencils are really going to be the acid test. I don't know how well it's going to smudge and smear. I still like a bit of smudge and smear and the ability to build up layers of graphite as well, because that's quite important for me in the types of drawings that I like to do, and even if I'm just sketching, because I do have some finished drawings in my everyday sketchbooks. So I'm just going to run my finger over that. Oh, wowee. Okay. So we've still got smudginess. You can see a little bit of the texture and the tooth of the paper through the pencil, which is absolutely fine. I really like that. But because it is quite a smooth paper, it's not that pronounced compared to my old sketchbook, which is also fine. The other thing that I want to test is the ability to erase these types of pencils in here. So I'm just going to do a bit of each. That is the HB. And I'm just using a medium pressure when I'm doing this. Obviously, if you press down really hard into the paper, it's not going to be as easy to erase. And you're going to get left with those sort of, you know, gouges in the paper where you've pressed really hard. In my sketchbook as well, I've always sprayed every page with fixative when I'm finished, so I'm not too concerned about transfer onto the other side. That's just something that I've always done and will continue to do. So I've just got a normal kneaded eraser here. Mine's getting quite grubby. I might have to replace it soon. It's seen a lot of work. So I just want to dab first, because that's when you have a finished sketch and you're ready to start either inking it or colouring it, you want to lighten up the line work. And that's done using a dabbing motion so that you don't take it away completely and then you can't see what you've drawn. So that's lifting quite well, as you can see. Now I'm going to do a bit of rubbing as well and just see if I can get rid of... Now that's interesting, that's quite a dark pencil and that's lifted quite a lot of the graphite off the page. This is looking good, guys. I mean, see, my main concern is graphite pencil because it's the thing I like to draw in most, and it's the single medium that I work in most. It's done a pretty good job on the F as well, apart from this sort of heavy edge of this line. But I'm reasonably impressed with that. When I am using this pencil, I normally use a really, really light pressure anyway, so... And the HB Mechanical is just disappearing. The next thing I want to test is some fine liners and brush pens. Again, I tend to use them for inking. So the first thing I've got here is the Pigma Micron PN, which is a plastic nib one. And I just want to see how this is going to go down on the paper, and that is just lovely. Again, because this paper was designed to cope with markers, it's going to take ink quite well. There is no bleed from that whatsoever. And it's doing everything I'm asking it to do without any complaints. And even if I start to fill that in, you know, if I sort of colour in a bit, which I don't generally do with these types of pens, but if I let that dry for a second, I want to see if it's going to smudge on the paper, and I'll also flip over and see if there's any ghosting onto the other side, which I would think with paper of this weight wouldn't be a problem. So the next one is the brush marker, which is actually, the nib is starting to fray a little bit on this one, but that's just because I've been using it. But that's absolutely no problem as well. And that feels quite good, and again, because the paper's smooth, it's really nice to work with a brush nib. Okay, there you go. So I'm having a rub at that now, and there's absolutely nothing happening, which is absolutely perfect. That is what we want. And lastly is a more traditional Pigma Micron, and this is a 003. This is like the teeny tiniest nib you can get. And these are the ones, if I'm working on paper, this is the one I'm going to have problems with, because you can't put a lot of pressure on them, because it just forces the nib into the barrel. So you need to know that you're going to get some sort of lay down. You know, the paper's going to be able to grip it even with the small amount of pressure that you're using, and that seems to be okay. I think the reason I like working with such a fine nib is it's probably the closest thing to a really sharp pencil, and that's probably why I like it. But I just like how delicate you can be and still have things stand out. Right, so let's take a look on the other side of this now. Okay, you can see there's a tiny bit of ghosting, and actually in the light and on the monitor it looks much more pronounced than it actually is in real life. I can see far more of that on the monitor over here than I can actually on the paper with my own eye. So I am more than satisfied with that, because I scrubbed quite heavily there when I was colouring in, and that was with a hard plastic nib as well. So I'm impressed, I'm more than happy with that. Okay, the next thing I want to test is some water-based inks, and it's not something that I use terribly often, but it's one of these things that I don't want it to ruin a sketchbook because of. So I've got a couple of these Karen Brush Marker Pros. I also like to use the Derwent water-based drawing inks as well, which have a similar consistency. So trying the purple one's probably a good idea because it's a really dark colour. And these are also really juicy as well. You know, they're quite wet when they go down, so if I'm going to have any problems, I'm assuming that this would show them up. And that is soaking in really quickly, which is a concern. Good so far. There is a tiny bit of feathering. I mean, like you can barely see it. I'm going to zoom right in so that you can see. So there is a tiny little bit of bleed out, but I have the camera on full zoom, and that is me also holding it up. You know, you're not going to get much closer than that. So it's not really a concern. Again, maybe not create any sort of masterpieces with it. But again, we're talking about a sketchbook here, but that at least the paper will cope with that, and I know it. So I've got the yellow one here as well. The colours are going down really true as well, true, because it is bright white paper, which is excellent. So you can see there, if I just move this across, again, a tiny little bit of ghosting, absolutely nothing to worry about, and it's not going to ruin anything on the other page. Oh, oh no. We're going to have to make that into something creative on this side now. So that is also really good news. Just while I'm here with these, because they are water-based, I am going to see how it copes with some water and see how much buckling we get. Now, I don't expect miracles. The paper will buckle. It's not watercolour paper. Good quality watercolour paper is generally 100% cotton, and it's usually about 300 grams per square metre. So it's, you know, it's almost, in fact, it's more than a third again, the thickness of this paper, apart from the fact it's made up of different constituents. So, but it'll just be interesting to see whether water is a complete no-no, or whether it's, you know, it can deal with a little bit. So I'm going to put quite a lot of water down. I'm not going to soak the page, but I'm going to be quite generous. And I'm just going to start to pull this down and just see what happens. It does seem to be absorbing quite quickly. The paper is holding the colour quite well as well, which is good. Do a bit of scrubbing as well, you know, give it a stress test. Okay. Wow. There is surprisingly little buckle in that. We'll leave it to dry, we'll see how it goes, but that, on a first impression, quite a lot of sketchbooks just kind of like scrunch up, you know, like a baby's face before they cry the minute that you put water on them, so this is quite encouraging. I'm not going to rake out tons of coloured pencils. I do have a couple of Prismacolors just to hand, so we'll maybe test with them, because that is a really soft pencil. And weirdly, I have my budget pack of Crayolas. These are my visitors pencils, and these are the opposite of Prismas. They're very, very hard, so we can try a couple of these as well and just see what that's going to look like on the paper too. So what we want to check out here is if the paper is going to take layers of pencil, which it seems to be doing reasonably well here actually. Press really hard there and see what happens. Oh, look at that. You wouldn't even have to burnish that. There's, again, because the paper's a bit smoother, the texture of the paper is more or less disappearing when you press quite hard like that. And that, I mean, that's only like 3 layers. That's really good. So, not an ideal colour to be blending in, but we'll try it with this anyway. Yeah, this is good. I'm happy with this. I can use coloured pencils in this all day long. All day long. Okay, the Prismas are a win for sure. This is also taking the Crayolas reasonably well. You can see it's actually laying down quite consistently there. It's quite smooth. Let's try pressing a bit harder. It doesn't feel nice when you press hard. You can feel the pencil slipping on the paper. Generally, as a rule of thumb, harder pencils do work better on really toothy paper, so that kind of makes sense. That follows in with what we would assume anyway. But I mean, it's still taking it no problem. So again, harder pencils are going to be all right too. Got an orange here. Crayola aren't known for their consistency and their lay down across their, you know, the different colours. So I thought I'd pick 2 colours, but that's absolutely fine. Okay, It's also passed the test for coloured pencils. The next test is the alcohol marker test, and I'm going to do this up in the top corner because I would like to be able to use the page on the opposite side, and it will soak through. There you can see where the paper has buckled, and it's really good. You can actually see it in the light there from the water that we've put on these water-based pens here. And I have to say, it is minimal. There is nothing to stop me drawing in that page. It hasn't damaged it at all. It's just like 2 dimples. So that's really good as well. I'm impressed with that. So I've picked some vibrant colours, but I've also got black as well because that's kind of important. I want to see if it's going to bleed through onto this page. I know it's going to come through this side because that's what alcohol markers do, but it's whether or not the thickness of this paper can stop it from travelling any further. So we'll just put a couple of really, really heavy squishy marks down. So I've got a kind of bluish colour as well. This is Jasper. This is a lovely colour. I like the name of it too. That appeals to me. I like to name, if I'm drawing animals or anything that's even remotely character-esque, I always like to name them. And I name my colouring book, you know, characters as well. I just feel the need to name them. So I like the fact that a pen has a name. Okay. Interestingly, there is less feathering and less bleed out from what I've actually put down than the water-based pens. So the alcohol seems to behave quite well with this paper. That's quite impressive. And that is drying quite nicely. So let's... This paper seems to absorb mediums really quickly. And that's amazing if you're working because there's less chance of you smudging it and ruining your piece. So if we just come over the page, you can see there's a tiny little bit that's gone through onto here. It is absolutely minimal. And surprisingly, the black didn't do anything at all. And if we look here, you can see that obviously it has soaked through. That's going to happen. Say all alcohol markers will do that. And that's not really a problem. You just have to be aware of it. I don't use marker in my sketchbooks generally anyway, but it's nice to be able to have the option and know that it's not going to ruin the paper, or worse, it's going to destroy, you know, the next couple of pages underneath it as well. So that's pretty good. The next thing is watercolours. And this isn't really to test how the paper will take it because we kind of know the answer to that already. It's to see how the paint's actually going to sit on the paper. And one of the things about this is using watercolour is quite subjective because some people will use a rough or a cold press paper, which is really like knobbly bobbly. It's really, really textured. And some people like that. I am one of those people because I like texture. Other people like to use hot press paper, which is much smoother. So I'm just interested to see how the watercolour is going to behave as I try and move it about on the paper. Okay, for this as well, I've just got a little bit of card, which I'm going to pop in behind here because I don't want to ruin pages with, you know, with water. So I'm just going to tuck that in behind there so that it kind of absorbs some of this. So quite often when you're watercolouring, you will want to do a wash, which involves wetting your paper first and kind of letting it sink in a bit. And I can see that the water's kind of like sitting on the top a wee bit, but not drastically so. As I say, I'm not expecting this to behave like watercolour paper, but I just want to see, just get a feel for it really. So if I start popping down some green there, now I'm deliberately not smoothing it out. I want to see if it's going to settle into the paper and join up the way it would on watercolour paper, or whether you're still going to see the streaks. And I can tell straight away that that is really, really good. You can see it's actually quite smooth. You can't see my brush strokes. So that's taken that quite well. It's not bleeding much either. This is obviously onto dry paper, so this is wet onto dry. And the colours are staying really vibrant. It's picking up the paint really nicely, and it's, I mean, it's drying. I'm amazed at how quickly things dry in this. This is great. There we go. So again, we'll let that dry off and see what it does. The last supply that I want to test in here, there's something that I'm using a bit more of just recently, and that is Posca pens, which are paint pens. They're opaque paint pens. Let's just see how the paper takes them. Oh, it's wonderful. Because the paper is smooth, again, it's the paint's coming out really well and it's not meeting much resistance. So that's going to be really good for getting a nice smooth flat colour, which is what these are ideal for. Yeah, absolutely no issues with those either. Oh, this is so exciting. Okay, I lied, one more. I just want to try out some soft pastels and see what they do. Again, this paper isn't ideal for pastels because pastel really needs something to grip onto. But let's just see how it behaves anyway. Pastel's not something that I use a lot of. Chalk pastels or soft pastels are actually my least favourite medium. I try and avoid it like the plague. But sometimes you know you're required to use them, and that's just the way of it. So let's see how this goes. So messy, that's why I don't like them. I really, really don't like them. See if we can get our smudge on a little bit here. That's not bad. It's letting me blend it out reasonably well. Well, would you look at that? Again, that's really impressive. That's awesome. This is like the jack of all trades sketchbook. You can use this for everything. I would imagine as well, if we were to use pan pastels, which is the one that they look as if they come in like a, looks like makeup. This is pan pastel, and it's basically pastel in a sort of creamier format, and it's much more agreeable than old-fashioned chalk pastels. I love these. These are super expensive, but that's going to last forever. I mean, that's going to go a long way. So I'm just going to take, they do have like applicators that you can buy that are specifically designed for them, and if you buy a pack of the pan pastels, they usually give you a couple of these anyway. But these are much creamier. Oh, good grief, I'm in love. That is so silky and so smooth. I'm hardly touching the paper, and look how consistent that laydown is. That is amazing. Oh guys, I'm super excited about this. You will not get that smooth a laydown with any other type of pastel in your entire life on any paper. Look at that. That is amazing. Oh wow, I am so glad I bought this sketchbook. Righty-ho then, let's just go back. Oh, I've got a little bit of pastel in that. The wash area where I did the watercolour isn't quite dry yet, and you can see there's a little bit of buckling there in the paper. It's not horrendous. The actual structure of the outside of the paper is fine. It hasn't started to skew the entire page. It's just buckled where I've put the water down, which is quite good. And again, on the back, it's kind of like dimples. I would expect this, but it's not stressed out the other side of the paper in any way, shape or form, other than it's a little bit, you know, bent out of shape. So again, no issue with doing some sketches on top of that. Absolutely none whatsoever, for the very odd occasion where I will use water in my sketchbook. So up at the top here, you can see this is where the ink pens that I used the water brush on were, and there's significantly less buckling from that. So I may just stick with using a water brush rather than you know, doing this sort of thing. But again, these are we're talking about doing a wash here on paper that isn't designed to take it, so it's done really, really well. I made a mess of this page. I'm gonna have to do something really funky on that. Okay guys, I hope this has been helpful to you, and I hope it's been interesting for you as well. Just from this simple test, I can absolutely say 100% that I am in love with this sketchbook already. Look what it can do, look what it can cope with. This is exceptional, and it was absolutely worth every single bit of hassle and rigmarole that I went through to get it. So I'm really looking forward to filling this sketchbook up, and the good thing is I've got another one as well. So if I get really keen and get through it quickly, I've got another one waiting in the wings. that is everything from me today, guys, and I hope you've enjoyed coming on this slightly strange journey through this video with me, and I hope it gives you some ideas and some inspiration for yourself and your own sketchbooks. So if you like this, you know what to do. Give it a thumbs up. We are still a teeny weeny tiny channel, and the more thumbs up we get, the more people can discover our videos, which is exactly what we want, and we can make the Colour Cave community bigger and friendlier, if that's possible, than it already is. So have a good day, everyone, and we shall see you in the next video. Bye bye.